My name is Emily Bernstein. I am the Education Outreach Associate at the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh. The Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh is an organization that connects the horrors of the Holocaust and anti-Semitism with injustices of today. Through education, the Holocaust Center seeks to address these injustices and empower individuals to build a more civil and humane society. Our offerings include exhibits in our gallery, an extensive library and archive, engaging cultural events, internationally renowned speakers, and a free and affordable resource hub for all teachers. And teachers are what bring us here today. So today we're here to honor our Holocaust Educator of the Year for 2020. The Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh has been awarding this award, Holocaust Educator of the Year, for about 4 years. It was created to promote and recognize the importance of Holocaust education, and it's given every year to a Holocaust educator who inspires critical thought and personal growth through the lessons of the Holocaust. The winner of the Holocaust Educator of the Year award receives $2,000 of unrestricted funding to further Holocaust education in their classrooms. The school in which the recipient is employed also receives $1,000 to support the teaching of the Holocaust. And this year, we're so grateful to have Kathy Larson Galecki.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you so much for this award. It's truly an honor.
It's just an honor to be able to bestow it upon you because we've learned so much from your teaching. And just so you all know, I want to give you all a little info about Kathy because she's pretty awesome. Kathy is dedicated to building her students' understanding of themselves and their world by reading quality literature. A 25-year veteran English teacher at Avonworth Middle School, Kathy holds a master's degree in reading and language arts and a reading specialist certificate from Duquesne University. She earned her bachelor's degree in English and a secondary education certificate from Allegheny College. Kathy is committed to designing lessons that engage all types of students and challenge them to develop as readers, writers, and critical thinkers. She believes that a thoughtful examination of literature provides opportunities for students to learn about history and examine important issues that are still relevant in today's world. A lifelong learner, Kathy seeks opportunities to grow as an educator by reading, attending conferences, learning from community experts, and recently traveled to Poland with Classrooms Without Borders to learn more about Holocaust history. Kathy serves as a grade level department chair and is committed to collaborating and learning with her colleagues about best practices for middle schoolers. As a teacher mentor, Kathy welcomed many prospective and new teachers in her classroom to explore and develop with her. Kathy is also her middle school's literary magazine sponsor. Outside of the classroom, Kathy devotes her time to being a mother to 2 young adults and a volunteer in her community. Wow, what a wonderful intro, Kathy.
Thank you.
It says so much.
Thank you.
So let's get started learning a little bit more about you, the real Kathy Galecki, as one might say. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, personal and educational, that led you into the field of teaching.
Sure. Well, I was raised by 2 educators, and my father was a professor of philosophy. So we had some interesting conversations about learning and growing in our household growing up. And my mother was a teacher as well. And the environment was always such that challenged me to be curious about things and to always seek opportunities to grow and to learn. And I would say also an inspiration in my life has been my high school English teacher. She was this incredible lady who not only helped me appreciate the role and value of good literature, but also taught us about the importance of making meaningful connections with people. She always took her time to do that with us and made us laugh at ourselves. To us that we were all miserable adolescents one day in her classroom, and she kind of scoped the classroom and saw the mood, and she said, you know, one way that we can get out of feeling sorry for ourselves is to reach out to others and do something for someone else. And it was through those acts of love that we can grow and step outside ourselves and our self-pity. And that just has always stuck with me through my days. And I think it helped shape where I went in my life. So both my parents and my English teacher taught me about how individuals can have a big influence on others and inspire others. to think positively and impact their world. So when I headed off to college, I said, all right, I need to find a career that allows me to be a part of positive change, that allows me to do something for others. And because literature and writing was such a big part of my life and helped me figure out who I was and who the world, what the world was like around me, it was a great combination. And I wanted to inspire others through literature and writing.
Wow, it sounds like you are a born and raised helper. Um, yeah, it's such a, I can remember my own English teacher. I think people don't realize how much power and impact English teachers really have. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more. So how long have you been teaching the Holocaust through English language arts, and what got you started?
Well, I haven't been teaching it too long. I inherited the Diary of Anne Frank play unit. I say around maybe six years ago. And Holocaust content is typically in the 8th grade curriculum across the country is taught as a background for context information for the play, The Diary of Anne Frank, that appears in a typical drama unit, which is, you know, part of the Common Core curriculum. Um, and although I saw value in this play, I found teaching from a single text limited my students' experience. They had so many questions about the Holocaust. They wanted to learn more, and I felt this incredible responsibility to Anne Frank to do a little bit more and to expand the unit to provide a little bit more exploration for the Holocaust. So when my superintendent asked me if I wanted to apply for the trip to Poland with Classrooms Without Borders, I just jumped at that chance. And that 10-day experience of learning about history, where history happened, was just absolutely incredible. And I feel it fueled this sense of duty and responsibility that I have to share the stories of the past with students, that to keep the stories alive. So I went back to school with this renewed energy of trying to figure out a better way for us to expand the unit and teach.
That's amazing. How long ago did you go on the trip?
I believe 2017, so 3 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago, but because the memories are still so fresh and vivid to me.
So, what qualities, I know you were talking about your English teacher, what qualities do you think of in great teaching or in a great teacher?
I could probably talk for hours about that, but well, great teacher isn't just knowing your content really well, although that's very important to know your content, to be an expert. And it's not just well-planned lessons with bells and whistles, although those are important, but it's also more importantly knowing your students, knowing how to make those meaningful connections with them so that you can engage them in learning, especially with the young adolescents that I have, the 8th graders. They need to feel safe and secure and appreciated and respected and valued. So a good teacher not only takes time to construct their lessons and to know their content really well, but also takes the time to open their hearts and their minds to how kids learn, how their brains work, and makes it a point to know them as individuals. Um, so I would say good teaching takes a lot of patience and empathy and respect for the kids that are in your classroom. I think good teaching also involves this open mindset to learning and growing, and that you never are going to stop. And that you learn from your students, you learn from your parents, you learn from your colleagues and experts in your community. And having that open mindset allows you to keep evolving and growing as a teacher. And finally, I find this characteristic to be probably the most important, and that is a good sense of humor. Humor is a must when you're working with adolescents or young adolescents like I am. So the ability to laugh at yourself in your situation is really important.
Not taking yourself too seriously.
Right.
I'm so grateful that I got to spend a little bit of time in your classroom, and I really have to say I enjoyed it so much. And I know that another one of our colleagues has spent time in your classroom. So with that, what literature or teaching methods do you draw inspiration from to craft your Holocaust or Human Rights English Language Arts unit? Can you tell us a little bit about your approach?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's so exciting what we do at Avonworth. So Avonworth Middle School encourages and supports what's called problem-based or project-based learning, often abbreviated to PBL model. And it supports terrific, authentic learning for an authentic task and an authentic audience. And so our Holocaust literature themes unit that we have at Avonworth Middle School in 8th grade is designed as a PBL. And we start the Holocaust unit by going on a field trip. What's really great is our district supports a lot of these different types of activities. And we go see the film Run Boy Run, which is a great age-appropriate film for 8th graders about the Holocaust, with Teen Screen Film Pittsburgh. And then the next day we come back and we learn about the concept of anti-Semitism and through discussion and reading. And we also read about the horrible tragedy of the Tree of Life synagogue and how anti-Semitism presents itself in today's world. And the kids have a great discussion about this. Then, as with all PBLs, the students are challenged with this authentic task, like I said earlier, or purpose for learning. So the students read this call of action letter that we have from Classrooms Without Borders director speaker. And the letter challenges them to critically read the texts that are going to be presented to them and try to uncover the important themes or lessons from the novels, and then share those lessons with the community and help with their organization's mission of teaching about history and how history can inform our present. So most PBLs have a driving question or two, and our driving questions for our unit were, how may the lessons of the Holocaust inform and improve the present? And how can we share these lessons to build a kind, inclusive, and accepting community? And they were called on to generate some kind of product or develop some kind of service for their community or school that could be shared at our exhibit night, and which happened at the end of the unit. And we also, and I love this part, and I was really grateful that you were able to come in. We then had a bunch of advisors from various organizations come in and help the kids. And I really appreciate having people who are experts share their knowledge with our students and try to help refine their ideas, because they're so young and they're 13, as you saw, and they really need all the help they can get to try to shape and channel some of the thoughts and ideas that they have. Other things that we do with the Holocaust unit, which have been really successful within the PBL, are book clubs. The kids love book clubs. We break them up into small groups, and they all read Holocaust-related texts. And some of them are, they're all age appropriate, but some of them are a little more difficult, so we can tier them according to their ability and according to their interest levels. Like we have one book, The Berlin Boxing Club, which is really focused on a young male's experience, and a lot of the boys identify with the voice of that book. Another activity that we have done within our unit is, and the kids really love this, and this has been new the last 2 years, and I can't wait to keep building this, is reading teen diaries from the book Salvage Pages. Mm. And Susan Stein, we're really fortunate to be able to host Susan Stein, the artist, actress, and teacher from New York. And she's come in for the last 2 years to work with us and has helped us shape the study of these young diaries from the Holocaust, and the kids, they get so engaged with these stories, or I'm sorry, with these diaries, that you can hear a pin drop. You can't hear a pin drop when they're reading because they're just so focused. And the conversations they have after reading the diaries are wonderful. They have a big impact on the kids because they're the age of the kids, and they talk about things that they can relate to, like arguing with their parents or being interested in another girl, or and it really pulls them in. Also, with Susan Stein's encouragement, she's been really great in helping me morph my unit. And she's introduced me to some artwork by Peter Gintz and Elizabeth Hoffman, which I loved including this year and showing the kids, and even showing them the little trailer for Peter Gintz's documentary. Have you seen that? It's wonderful. And another thing we do is with the PBL is we try every year, and we've been really lucky to be able to have a Holocaust survivor come into the school to talk to the kids.
Which just so we know, have which survivors have you invited to your classroom?
So we've had a while ago we had Marion Blumenthal-Lazen, the author of by Four Perfect Pebbles, and we also had Harry Schneider this past year. We've had, and I'm so sorry, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, but Shulamit Bastaki.
Yes.
Yes, she was wonderful. The kids adored her with her teddy bears, and really loved her. And of course we've had Howard Chandler, and he stood on that stage and talked to our kids, our both high school and middle school, for 2 hours. And again, they were so engaged, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. They were so interested, and they presented. This is the year our PBL was developing a scrapbook for him, and the kids put the lessons. This was one of the first years we did the PBL, and they put the lessons that they learned within artwork and poetry and short stories. And we put it in this big scrapbook, and they presented it to Mr. Chandler on stage, and it was really great.
It sounds beautiful. There's so many layers to the experience you're giving your students. Social, emotional, history, language arts, and even just character development. It's very impressive. So you've talked a little bit about this, but maybe you can add another layer. How do you feel Holocaust education, the way you're doing it at Avonworth, adds to your teaching and your students' lives? Do you see a change in your students after they experience your curriculum? Any changes in your community?
I do. I always give a survey at the end of the year for my students, and to reflect back on the year. And I ask them, well, what was their favorite unit? And I'd say, with the data that I have, 95% of the kids said that the Holocaust unit and the exhibit was their favorite unit. And I think it's because it has such a significant impact on their lives and their way of thinking, and they see the relevance of it. I think that final night with the exhibit provides them and our school this great opportunity to come together and examine these important lessons that the kids learned. They talk about things that are so important at this exhibit, and with grown-ups all for a good hour and a half, the dangers of bias and racism and prejudice and indifference. But also, the kids really like to focus on this is the value of inclusivity and acceptance and taking action against injustices. I think they all feel, after reading and learning about it, that they need to talk about this. A parent once came up to me at our last exhibit, and she just grabbed my arm and she said, "I just want to thank you." She said, "It's really great to see these kids leading conversations that really need to be happening right now." And she said, "I think having the kids lead the conversations is very impactful." Because I think teens nowadays are keenly aware of the injustices in today's world, and they care deeply about it. They they want to do something about it. So when you give them this opportunity to examine history like the Holocaust, because it relates so much to what's going on in today's world, they respond with this incredible, hopeful energy for changing the present and the future, and I think the unit empowers them. I think it gives them this great opportunity to do something positive, to make some positive change, and that they can make a difference and try to reshape their community.
That's beautiful. That's the change we're hoping for. Um, you talked a little bit about this even now, with the themes that your students discuss. What about current events? How do you take those themes and then hone in on current events and incorporate them into your Holocaust education?
Yeah, I really like the timing of the unit because it coincides with our, we have an integrated course in 8th grade called ELA Civics. And my Holocaust unit aligns at the same time, and it's planned out that way, with their unit about citizenship. Um, so the whole aim of this project is for the kids to explain how lessons from history can inform and improve our present. So we talk about that from the very beginning on the first day, um, and we discuss what happened at the Tree of Life Synagogue, and the kids can see those connections, and they can see and examine through news. We talk about what happened at UVA, how anti-Semitism presents itself in today's world, how racism presents itself in today's world. And our students actually hosted the Not in Our Town documentary film crew to film them talking about their ideas and what happened and how Pittsburgh responded um, with resistance to hate. And the kids were proud to talk about that, about what Pittsburghers did and how they came up with ways to resist and show this to the whole world. But like I said earlier, kids are just so very aware of the injustices that are in our world, and they care about them. And so in ELA civics class, they're talking about immigration, refugees. They're reading the book Refugee by Alan Gratz, which is just a wonderful text that connects the Holocaust, refugees from the Holocaust, refugees from Cuba, and refugees from Syria. And the ELA civics teachers host this great workshop where we have refugees and immigrants come to our school for a whole day. And the kids are able to talk to them about current issues and learn about what's happening in the world and why they came to the United States. And we have a variety of different people who come to our school. So we guide them through this understanding of immigration and where people are in terms of experiencing refugee status. And through all of this, I think the kids, they learn so much about the power of propaganda in shaping a society's mindset. They explore a lot of media, um, and also just by reading about the Holocaust, they can make those connections and say, oh, this is how this happened, and this is how that mindset happened, and they're just at the beginning of their understanding of this. They explore more of this when they're in high school, but they start to see how those biases that were present in the past, racism, segregation, stereotyping, they start to make those connections on their own about how they are also present in today's world. But, and on a positive note, through their books and their study of current events, they're also able to see how people have resisted, and how they fight against those biases.
And it sounds like you give them like an experience to sort of use to to help them mull over what they're learning, to contextualize what they're learning, to meet with an actual survivor of either the Holocaust or a Syrian refugee, or gives them the human element of the history. It just sounds like a very unique classroom experience for them. Building on that question, recent events in our country have been quite heavy, including, but not limited to, the COVID-19 pandemic and nationwide riots against police brutality and systemic racism. Do you think that there are lessons that can be taken from the Holocaust to grapple with these difficult topics?
Yes, most definitely. It's absolutely essential that we visit the past and learn about the Holocaust history. Holocaust education has never been more important than today. The inequities that COVID-19 pandemic have exposed, and the Black Lives Matter movement all connect with our world's ongoing effort to understand and combat systemic racism and stereotyping. Holocaust education immerses students into that necessary narrative that helps them acknowledge our world's history, to understand the behaviors that they're seeing right now in today's world. It helps them understand the behaviors of their own country, our country that's still striving to achieve the ideals that we established in the Declaration of Independence, which we do read in my class after the Holocaust unit, and it's great to make those connections. And Holocaust education is paving the way for understanding and empathy, for understanding our own country's long struggle for equality. There is an incredible value in Holocaust education that challenges students to examine where these hateful stereotypes have led us in the past. And when they're left unchecked, where those patterns can carry us. So through our education of the past, through Holocaust education, students are able to identify the prejudices and bigotry around them, and they're more aware of these consequences of intolerance, and they can respond with acts of kindness and empathy. They can start to see the importance of that. So Holocaust education, I think its most valuable outcome is to inspire students to reject any form of discrimination, and empower them to shape their community with diversity and inclusion and acceptance.
So you have such a background, not only in education, but now in the Holocaust. What are some challenges you faced in teaching about the Holocaust, and what advice would you give to an educator who will be teaching about the Holocaust for the first time?
Yeah, so I think my students' reaction to the unit content always poses a challenge for me personally. My students are young, they're 13, and they're at the cusp of adolescence, or at the start of moving away from childhood, that childhood innocence, and they're facing, sometimes for the first time, some of the ugliness of humanity, the horrific side of humanity, and I take that very seriously. And a common student reaction with the Holocaust unit is one of disbelief and sadness and anger. I see that a lot. And although kids are exposed to realities in social media and they see a lot of that every day, I think the Holocaust unit, where they're reading, takes them a little deeper into the hearts and souls of people, and they respond to that, and they often say, well, how could you let this happen? They look at me, like the adult world, how could you let this happen? How could we do this? And that's an appropriate and necessary reaction, but they have this strong emotional response, and you have to figure out, what do you do with that? And I think that's the biggest challenge, and our response was to figure out that it has to be challenged. It needs an outlet. And so my advice is help kids find that outlet. Help them learn how to not just keep that frustration inside of themselves and that disappointment in people inside of them. Empower them to know that they have that ability to share what they feel and to make a change. That they can educate others and shape others with their new knowledge that they've gained. That they can act for justice and not just learn about it, but they can actually act for it with whether it's just simply a conversation and an exhibit. Or with the ways that they treat others in their class or in the hallways, the ways that they can kind of include others and accept others. So I find that reaction is one of my biggest challenges, but you got to use that and help channel it another way. Another piece of advice that I would give a teacher just starting off to teach the Holocaust is to use your community's resources to guide you through a variety, like you were talking about, a variety of activities. To work with Teen Screen Film Pittsburgh to see those age-appropriate films, and they're just wonderful. To welcome community members from the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh, from Teen Screen Film Pittsburgh, from Classrooms Without Borders, welcome them into their classroom. These three organizations are wonderful, and they have fantastic people who are committed to helping you, and staying in touch with them, getting on their mailing list and finding out about the wonderful resources and conferences and seminars that they're always making available to you so you can continue to learn more. There's tremendous support here in Pittsburgh if you look for it. Also, if you're able to find time in your curriculum, I would say for new teachers that I would recommend that you branch out from a single text. There's ways of just using smaller excerpts from the diaries so that it doesn't take too much time, but you really are opening up their students' exploration to see history from different lenses. And I highly recommend looking at the novel or the collection called Salvage Pages with the teen diarists from the Holocaust. And also breaking the kids up into smaller groups is a really great idea for book clubs because at their age, they really enjoy that smaller conversation and socialization that they get. And that's been really successful in my classroom are the book clubs. And like I had mentioned earlier about having Holocaust survivors, the kids have to hear eyewitnesses. I would suggest working with your local organizations to see if it's possible to have a Holocaust survivor come to your classroom or your school, do it, or go online and find some great videos that there are dozens of them, thousands of them, where the kids can actually listen to people who have been there, who have lived through the Holocaust to talk about it. I think kids need to hear those voices. And another recommendation I would make is to use the website Facing History in Ourselves. I love this site. I could spend hours there. It's very dangerous when I visit there because hours can go by quickly. It's a terrific site. They have a whole study guide for salvage pages that I mentioned earlier. And I have used that a lot, but also they have great resources for teaching current events. And like, for example, I just went on the other day and they have this great lesson to guide students through a reflection of George Floyd's death and police violence towards Black Americans. And you could use that in the fall. So there's so many ways of connecting the past to the present that this website can really guide you through and help you. Yeah, I would say that's definitely visit Facing History and Ourselves.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful advice. The Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh loves Facing History, as well as other organizations that you mentioned. We're working very closely with them. And you can tell just from your description of the things that your advice and what you see in your students, that you are an empathetic person, and a very special educator. That you have this relationship with your students where they can reflect with you. I think that is in itself, having that rapport, very indicative of the kind of person and the kind of teacher you are. And we're so grateful that you could be with us today and help us get to know you more and learn a little bit more about your approach to Holocaust education and what it's doing for you and your students in your community. Kathy, are there any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, yes. Whether you are a student, a parent, an educator, a community member, we all have this important ability and role in helping our community understand and confront biases and hate and systemic racism. And an important way we can do this is just by close reading great literature to understand this history and Holocaust history, Black American history, Native American history. There's so much in literature, and I know that a lot of us have been, using social media and reading articles online, which are great. But literature holds important stories that I think we need to continue to revisit that helps shape our narratives today. And we need to empower our kids. I know I said this earlier, but we need to empower them to let them know that they have the potential to impact their world because they're our future, and they can be that positive influence. And I just want to say again, thank you to the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh for this great award. I'm very honored by it. I truly appreciate all of the help that you've given us at Avonworth, and we are looking forward to using the funds to improve our current Holocaust education program at Avonworth. And I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to talk with you today about what we do at Avonworth, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, we look forward to working with you too, Kathy. We can't wait to see what even greater things you have in store. And just what a privilege it is to be working with you. We can't do what we do without you, and teachers like you who are very dedicated to teaching the lessons of the Holocaust and giving the context to show the relevance of these themes today. And thank you so much for coming to meet with us today. And if you are interested in learning more about the Holocaust, for any of our listeners, or you're interested in learning more about how to teach the Holocaust, please give us a ring. You can call us. You can also visit our website, hcofpgh.org, and we have lots of interesting events coming up through the summer, virtual events. We have our current exhibit, which is digitized online, but you can also tune in with us live to our conversation series. I know we've been planning a bunch of conversations this summer. It's an ongoing series of conversations that features community members having a dialogue with the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh's director, Dr. Lauren After Bairnsfather. And this summer's conversation series will center around the theme of the power of the individual. The most recent one that's coming up is a conversation with Jessie Ramey and Amanda Natror. I may have said those names incorrectly, but I tried. So that's going to be on July 6th, 2020 at 12 p.m. And you can register on our website through the link hcofpgh.org/events. We also have a really interesting conversation coming up the following week with Reverend Tim Smith of the Center for Life. And we have a really cool teacher training coming up, Teaching Partisan Resistance through JPEF. So you can learn to engage and inspire students by teaching about the 30,000 Jews who fought back against the Nazis and their collaborators as Jewish partisans. So during that particular unit, which will take place online July 16th at 1 p.m., you'll learn how to teach with the motion picture Defiance. And you'll learn how to use the film and how to use it to explore history, leadership, ethics, and values, which is something that I know Kathy was kind of touching on the theme of resistance and how important that is, and how we can easily draw connections between the events of history and the Holocaust and today. And if you're interested in any further information on speakers, if you'd like to have a Holocaust survivor speak in your class, we can do our best to accommodate that request in our current environment of the pandemic. And we also have a number of generation speakers who are the children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, who have beautiful presentations, and many of those speakers have been educators themselves. So Kathy, thank you again, and we look forward to speaking with you more. And if any of our listeners have questions, we hope that we can forward them your way. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at the Holocaust Center. We'd be happy to connect you with Kathy and her expertise.
Thank you so much, Emily.